Hello everyone and welcome to this highly anticipated tutorial. So, we're finally here. We got custom animations in MX bikes. It's not a new thing in GP bikes. There are plenty of modders who imported brand new rider models and made brand new animations, but for some reason that's always been some kind of a secret, more or less. And now recently, a couple friends and me, we started messing around with animations and stuff. And yeah, we are here. You might probably have seen already my MXP mods post about my custom animations. And today I'm going to show you the basic, or like the first step into getting animations into the game by making a custom idle animation. So the main menu thing. I'll boot up my game and show you what I'm actually talking about. Actually, let me close Blender entirely. Yeah, so custom animations. It's always been like something no one really touched in MX bikes, and there was barely any documentation about how to make custom animations. And at some point, I realized there's a rig available, like a skeleton available on a Pivoso forum, which is GP bikes. But yeah, so here we are in the main menu. As you can see, that's the main menu idle animation, and I made a custom one, or like I made 3 custom ones where my guy is sitting on the floor next to the bike, or like standing next to the bike with his hands on a bike and stuff like that. So that's our default animation where our guy just stands here, arms crossed, breathing a bit, and we are going to change that. One thing I learned in the last week or so is we can actually hot load the main menu animation so you don't have to restart your game every time. That's going to be very important because I did a video yesterday already, but I wasn't happy with it, and I was restarting the game over and over again, and at some point I realized I could just like hit a key in the viewer mode and it'll reload. So keep that in mind, we're gonna use that a lot. So first of all, we need to get our skeleton. So we open up our browser, go to MXP mods, then we look for rider template, and I updated this one yesterday. So it has the updated skeleton, which should work right out of box. So I'm doing it just like you would by downloading the skeleton, open the zip, and here we have 3 files: a blend, an FBX, and a PNG. Those, like the PNG, we'll get into it in a second. That's very important. It's the export settings for Blender. So next up, we want to look for Pivoso rider anim. And here we have the very first thread, which is rider animations. And here you can see, at this link it is possible to download the skeleton of the rider in FBX format. If you download this skeleton, it won't work in Blender. You have to import it into 3ds Max, then export differently in a newer format, and then you're able to open it in Blender. And since no one really owns 3ds Max anymore, like there's just a couple who have a license or something, yeah, we're gonna make it work for Blender, and that's what my skeleton does. Like, it also has 2 bones that are missing in the GP bikes rider template, because in GP bikes you don't have a protection bone, and in MX bikes you apply a protection onto a bone. So if we select the chest protection, you can see we have the armor, like the chest protection, which has like it's linked to a bone here, and then linked to another bone, so it moves with your arms and your upper body pretty much. And that's what's missing in the skeleton. So in mine, there's the 2 bones added, which are missing in the original one. Okay, enough of that. Next up, we need the conversion tools. There we find FBX to EDF, which we need to import to export an FBX, like to convert an FBX to an animation file or like an EDF file for models, but that's none for today. Today we're making animations. So next up we have, when exporting the FBX file from Blender, please make sure that the primary bone axis is set to x-axis and the secondary bone axis is set to -z-axis. That's also what I have mentioned here in the PNG. As you can see, that's like the export settings for FBX export. And here you need to set primary bone to X and secondary bone to -Z. Otherwise, your wider will be all over the place. And we don't want that. Next up, we have a list of animation names. That's not all animations, and it's also not explained how animations have to be linked, because here for the raise arm animation, for example, and that's why I updated my post like 3 or 4 times, in the raise arm animation, which is rider10.anm, you have raise arm, complaint sitting, complaint standing, frustration sitting, no, frustration as alone, celebration standing, and celebration sitting. So you have 5 animations in one file. That's pretty deep already. We are just focusing on making a single animation in one file. So our idle animation, our stand animation. And if we're looking in a list, we can't find anything that says like idle or like menu or something like that. So how do I figure out which animation and which file I have to replace to get a new animation to the game? First of all, we want to open up our library, our Steam library. And here, MXBikes, we click Properties, Local Files, and Browse. And then we're in the MXBikes installation folder. Important note here, if we want to swap default animations right now on the 13th of September 2024, it is not possible to swap animations via mods. It's only possible to swap animations via the root folder pretty much. So more to that in a second. So we want to swap the menu idle animation. How do I figure out which animation I need to replace? We open up the Rider PKZ with 7-zip or WinRAR. Then we head over to Rider, Animations, MX. And here we have a bunch of A&M files. And you can see Rider, A&M, Rider Stand, Rider 2, 3, 4, 5, yada yada yada. If we want to figure out which animation belongs in which file, I'll probably put a text file in the description, because actually you can figure them out by opening those A&M files with Notepad. And here you will see, let me open it up here. Here you'll see the content of the file. And right now it was transformed already, but it would look something like that. So we start with A&M, a lot of nonsense, and inside here we have profile menu idle 0.01. So that's pretty much everything we need. The animation is called profile menu idle, and we're working with 0.01. And 0.01 is our armature model. But more to that in a second. It's just something you need to remember. So if we go into Rider 10, for example, we have raise arm, then we have a bunch of bones, and then somewhere in between all of that, we also get something like frustration. You see, like sometimes we have words in the files, so that's how it was possible to like figure out which animations belong into which file. Yeah, but that's pretty deep down. Just wanted to let you know how to figure out the animation name, because some stuff isn't in a forum thread by Piboso, so we have to figure it out on our own. Okay, so keep that open. We can close the Rider PKZ, and now we need to prepare our environment pretty much. So we are still in the MXBikes installation folder, right? So CMaps common MXBikes. Inside here, we want to create a new folder and call it Rider. Open the folder, create a new folder, call it Animations. Open it, create a new folder, call it MX. Do you remember how I got to that? Because it's the same hierarchy in the wider PKZ. So it's wider animations MX. And inside here, I like to work inside my folders. Like I like to have all in one place. So I'm going to create a new folder in here and I call it modding, just so I can save all my files in here. Okay, so open it up. Now I'm gonna move the stuff I downloaded earlier from my post and bring it into this folder. So I have my whole project in the same folder where I also get my configs from. Okay, so we also downloaded the conversion tools. And in the conversion tools, you open a zip, you'll find FBX to EDF. So I don't need to download it because I have all the tools. So you just download the conversion tools, and inside there you'll find FBX to EDF. It will look something like that. Copy it over into the modding folder, and now we expanded our project files. So next up, we have some information. The animations marked with asterisks are optional. If missing, they are disabled, blah, blah, blah. Now we have, while a script is not strictly needed to export an animation, by default all the keys are exported as one animation. In practice, a script is needed to set the bone's weight and to split a single max file into multiple animations. Script example, params type 4, that means we are doing an animation. Hierarchy, split 1, rotation 0, 180, 0, 0.01 goes into rider.anm. And our animation, we split it and we use the config animations lean.txt. You can name this file whatever you want. Since we're doing an idle animation, I probably call mine idle_1.conf. I just use .conf because I don't want to use txt and open txt files in Notepad++. So yeah, I just changed that to conf. You can call it whatever you want. I just think talking about an animation configuration .conf makes more sense to me. So yeah, the data we put into our config file is this here: num animations 2, animation 0, animation 1, leaning, blah, blah, blah. And as you probably see already, we put 2 animations into one file. That's because the wider animation needs at least leaning and head lean. But we don't need that. We just need a single animation. So what we are trying to do is a little bit easier. And here we have some information about bone weight. That's also very deep already, and we are not 100% sure yet when to use which value, when to include the bone's weight, etc., etc. For this tutorial, to make a profile menu, an idle animation, an idle menu animation, we don't need all of that. We do need a script, but we don't need to weight bones or anything. So let's start with our script. We select the code, copy, and here we create a new file and we call it idle1.ini. Actually, we can just call it wider stand because that's the animation we want to swap, and I like to have it all clean and apply the white config to the white animation. I hope that's kind of understandable. Just let me... Okay, there we go. So, open up the wider stand ini in Notepad or Notepad++. It will probably look exactly the same. And here we want to paste the script we just copied from the forum thread. Okay, so we have type 4.101, which is our armature name, and your armature needs to be called 0.01. If you call it armature or skeleton, it won't work with custom models. So you need to call it 0.01. And here we have rider.anm. We want to swap the rider_stand.anm. Right? Because do I still have it open? Yeah. Yes, we want to keep it in editor because I still have it open and we want to swap this animation. So since I am in a subfolder in animations MX, our wider stand A&M file needs to go into this folder, like into animations mx. So we are one folder forth, and we want to put it one folder back. So all we do is type /, which means it puts this file one folder up. So as soon as we run fbx to edf, it'll instantly install it will instantly update our animation, which is pretty helpful actually. So we skip the step of copying the file back and forth, and yeah, that's just something I like to do for convenience. You can do as you wish. And we also change it to wider_stand. Okay, next up, animation split one config. We call it idle_one dot, I call it conf. So we make a new file and call it idle1.conf and open it up in Notepad. So in that config file, we're gonna put all of this. But as I already said multiple times, since we're doing an idle animation, we don't need to wait our bones at all. What I do for convenience, because that's something you need to do, or you always need to do when doing an animation, you need to include your 0.01. Actually, you don't have to do it in a menu animation, and that's why I said we're still not 100% sure yet how to, when to include or not include something. But just so I have everything the same, I used to include 0.01, just so we have it here. So I removed the weight of the second animation. So I also gonna remove the second animation. And I switch num animations to 1. So now we have our first animation, which is leaning. So in the beginning, we opened our wider stand file and we figured out that our animation is called profile menu idle. So we copy that, paste it here, and also we place it here. So now we tell the configuration file to make an animation for profile menu idle, which goes from frame 0 to frame 50. That's something we get from our Blender timeline. The menu animation is locked at 5 seconds. So when you have a Blender timeline, which is by default at 30 FPS, and you want a 5-second animation, it's 150 frames. And I don't know why it is like that. I am not an animator. I just learned all the stuff in the past 2 weeks maybe, or like in the past week. Our blend timeline will be 1 to 150. I don't know why it starts at 1, but it's 150 frames because that's 5 seconds. Okay? So I'll leave it like that. We are going to open Blender now. So save the config. We can minimize that. And now we can open up the blend file. So in the blend file I shared on my post, you see something standing in an A pose. And you should also have a timeline and be an action editor. Here we see our skeleton name. Actually, that's our skeleton. That's our wig, which both are called 0.01. And inside here you have a lot of bones. Like you have shoulders, you have collarbones, you have the shoulders, you have the elbow, etc. Since we're right now in pose mode, we can move the bones, and every bone that's a child of the next bone can be moved as well. I'm not here to explain to you how animations work, like how to animate something in Blender. I'm here to explain to you how to bring an animation into the game. So, first of all, that's the most important step. We need to fill the animation, like we need to fill the file with data. If we keep it like that, empty, we won't get any results. So that's something to note. I can do the very first, like if we want to at least create a file and see if everything works, we can straight up just export it to FBX. And as you can see, since my blend is in my modding folder, I also have it right here. And then I call my animation idle 1.fbx. Now remember, we need to export our fbx with a special set of bone axes. So if we go back into the forum thread, we have primary bone to x and secondary bone to -z. So we need to go into geometry, into armature, excuse me. We have primary bone x and secondary bone -z. Yep. So we need to do that, otherwise your rider will be all over the place, and we don't want that. Okay. If you don't want to switch it every time and check if it's right, you can create a preset. So I have mine already saved, and you do that by clicking on the plus and then call it rider animation. Hit OK. And now every time you, like that's now the default again, every time you select your rider animation, it switches to the preset, to the settings you set earlier. Just a little Blender tip. Okay, so now we click export FBX, make sure bake animation is checked, hit export. Now we open up FBX to EDF, and you can see we have the idle FBX right here. We click load, we select our idle 1 FBX. Our script is rider stand.ini, and that's the console. When we click convert, we get animation data vertices merge, configuration file, so it read everything. Now if we check our rider stand anim file, it's 1 kilobytes big. That's because we have no information in our animation file. So back into the game. And as I said in the beginning, we can hot reload our main menu animation. So all we gotta do is go back into menu and click on the camera button, or like the viewer button. So now all you wanna do is click R, like reload. And it needs a second, and there we are. We have our guy flipped around a bit. Yeah. So what's the issue? The issue is we need to rotate our rider's axis as well in Blender. So how do we do that? We go over to, I think it was object mode. Oh, actually, no. Okay, I'm back. I just needed to check something. Sorry for the delay. Actually, you didn't have a delay. I had a delay. Yeah, so as you seen, our rider is like laying on the ground. And why is he doing that? It's because our animation file is empty. We have no information fed into it. So what I like to do when making an animation, or like in this case when doing a new one, I'm gonna select the whole rig in pose mode. That's very important. And then you right click, insert keyframe, and say location, rotation, and scale. So, and now we've set the very first frame to our starting point, pretty much. Okay, so yeah, that's what I forgot to mention. All right, so yeah, in Blender animations, it works with keyframes and actions. And like I said earlier, I'm not here to explain to you how to animate in Blender. I'm just here to explain to you how to bring something into the game. If you watch some animation tutorials, you'll hear stuff about dope sheet, action editor, and creating new actions, etc. I'm just purely telling you the basics how to bring it into the game. Okay, so yeah, we can export, select our preset, export. Now we want FBX to EDF as well. I just like make my screen a bit smaller, so we have it all in one. And now I can click R for reload, and now it should work. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so our guy is standing, just like in our blend file. Now, as you can see, we are inside the bike, or like the bike is offset a little bit, and our rider is standing in the center of our scene. So we need to move the rider away from the bike a bit. And how do we do that? Unselect, in the timeline setting, unselect auto keying. And now we want to move the origin of our skeleton, because as you can see, the orange thing here, that's like our starting point where he's standing right now, okay? So we go into object mode, and inside here we want to select transform effect only origins. So we're just moving the origin. If we don't select it, we move the entire wig and it will snap back to the same position. So we want to put the origin like 0.5 meters away from the rider. As you can see, we have the x-axis, y goes up. In the blend file, it's the axes are already changed, because you need y up in MX bikes. It's a bit different than a Blender. As you can see, normally z is up and y goes all to the back. So we want to move our origin on x by 0.5. We do it by pressing G, x 0.5. That's the wrong way, so we do a minus. And now we are half a meter away from the origin point. Now, I did a little shortcut to export to EDF. You can do so by right-clicking FBX and saying add to quick change shortcut, or like add shortcut, and I have mine on Shift Control E. So every time I want to export, I just hit Shift Control E. You don't need to select your operator preset every time. When you open your blend and select the preset, it will be saved for the entirety. So as long as you don't close the blend file, it'll be saved or selected. So hit export, hit convert. Press R to reload. And there we go. We are now half a meter away from our bike. We could also go like 0.25 further away, but that's enough for now. Now, I just do a little show, like not a showcase, a little explanation on how to bring like movement into your scene. As I said earlier, the menu idle animation is locked to 5 seconds, currently in beta 19. So that's 150 frames. If you don't know how to figure out, if you don't know how long that is, you can go to View and click on Show Seconds. And here you can see we go from 1 second to from 0.1 second to 5 seconds. So that's 150 frames at 30 FPS. So we have all of this room to animate pretty much. What I like to do is like I set my first bounce, or like my starting position and my end position at the very beginning. And right now I want to let the rider breathe a little bit. And we do that by rotating one of the spines by like 0.1. Actually, we need to hit auto keying again. So we want to make him breathe a little bit, and we need the spine and the collarbones a little bit. So we have like a little movement in his upper body. So like I said earlier, I want to have my start and end positions. So I go here and select those bones and say insert keyframe, location, rotation, and scale. And now I go to the center of our animation, which is 75 frames. And here I want to rotate our spine 2 by 1 degree, our collar by -1, 1, and that's actually pretty much it. So we have a little movement in his upper body. So he's like extending his arms and extending. It seems like he would extend his chest, but it's just like his upper body is tilting to the back. So that's all. As I said earlier, if you want to learn animating, you really need to watch some Blender tutorials. But now we can again export to FBX, have our animations, our presets selected, click export FBX, and now we want to have the full 5 seconds of our animation. So our animation starts at 1, like at frame 1, and ends at frame 150. we open our config file again, and we need to tell the config that our frames are from 1 to 150. Hit save. And now it'll play back the whole 5 seconds, or like the whole 149 frames. So click convert, press reload. Takes a bit. And there we have it. So he's moving. We got our first animation in. Now from here on, you can animate whatever you want. You can make him sit, you can cross the arms, you can wink, you can lean against the bike, whatever you feel like. Your creativity is completely open and up to you. Yeah, as always, that was an unscripted tutorial. Like, it was a second try, but I hope it was kind of understandable of what I was of what I was doing. And if there's huge interest, I might, and of course, if there's huge interest, and if we figured out more about properly weighting bones, we might consider, probably I might consider making a second tutorial to like explain how to make a raise arm animation and how to put multiple animations in one file. But for now, that should be enough. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you could learn something, because that for sure is something that makes it possible for modders to like open up their creativity once again, add new trick animations. As you saw already, I did a little leg swag animation, which isn't perfect at all, but it worked, and it's a beginning. And yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something, and see you in the next one.